My family anticipates my forgiveness of my brother, who has wronged my fiancée within the confines of their own residence. I met my fiancée, a 25-year-old woman, when we were both enrolled in college. We became acquainted through mutual acquaintances and began dating approximately 1 year later. When she was introduced to my family, she was met with unanimous approval, including from my mother, who is typically reserved with foreigners. My mother and father are immigrants who have resided in the country where we currently live since their arrival. The local community is generally very reserved with anyone who is not from the community. This may be perceived as racist, but it is not the case. I must mention my brother, who was 29 months before the incident. He was my superhero. I always admired him because he never was intimidated by the local children and because he always was very protective of me and our sister, who was 22 months old. He always reminded us that we should never look down just because someone tried to annoy us, and that we had as much right to live here as anyone. Upon introducing him to my girlfriend, they became fast friends. They spent much time together, and my girlfriend was quite close to my family, especially my siblings. Given the closeness of my family, it was not unusual for her to socialize with other relatives. She would go shopping with my sister and mother, play billiards with me and my cousins, and attend every party my family organized. At one such party, I and my family became quite intoxicated to the point that I ended up sleeping on the floor of my parents' living room. Upon the conclusion of the party, my girlfriend exhibited a peculiar demeanor. Upon inquiry, she informed me that my brother had attempted to kiss her. The astonishment she expressed upon hearing these words was so profound that the effects of the alcohol dissipated. I requested that she recount the events that transpired. She informed me that several guests ascended to the roof to imbibe, ostensibly to experience the wind. Gradually, they all departed, leaving only she and I. The two siblings were left alone in the room, where they consumed alcohol for some time. While they were engaged in conversation, she observed that he was fixating on her and, seemingly out of nowhere, he bent down in an attempt to kiss her. However, she was quicker and managed to evade the kiss. The atmosphere became noticeably tense after this incident, and she decided to leave the premises. When she had finished recounting the events to me, I accompanied her to her residence. Later, I spoke with my brother and requested that he clarify the details of the incident. He provided a similar account, but from his perspective. He expressed remorse and apologized for his actions. He was so intoxicated that he was unable to think clearly and expressed regret for his actions. Recalling the conversation, I was filled with anger because at that moment, I believed that the incident was relatively minor and could be resolved through dialogue and the establishment of boundaries. After the party, my relationship with my brother became strained. We rarely spoke to each other, and when we did, our interactions were as polite as possible, as if we were strangers. The only other individual aware of the incident was my younger sister. On one occasion, she and my girlfriend were discussing the matter when she inquired as to why my brother and I had become estranged. My girlfriend informed her that we had decided not to comment on the matter further, as we were concerned that the relationship might deteriorate further. After a few months, my family organized a party where they invited numerous individuals, including friends and family. At the aforementioned gathering, my girlfriend and my brother encountered one another once more. At that juncture, I presumed that sufficient time had elapsed since the kiss incident, and that it might be the inaugural step towards restoring normalcy. During the course of the party, I lost sight of my girlfriend and commenced a search for her. I sought her for a considerable duration without success, prompting me to conclude that she might have been in the company of my sister. However, a thought suddenly crossed my mind, prompting me to ascend to the upper floor while searching for her. As I ascended the stairs, I began to discern peculiar sounds emanating from one of the rooms. Upon opening the door, I observed my brother restraining my girlfriend against the bed, attempting to silence her with his hand while she struggled to break free. I did not hesitate to intervene, and as soon as I saw them, I rushed at my brother and commenced striking him. My girlfriend swiftly exited the room and descended the stairs, seeking assistance from my father and uncles. I continued to assault my brother as they arrived. My brother's face was covered in blood, as were my knuckles. My father was the one who had to separate us, but I continued to insult him and hit him. Eventually, he was able to separate us, and then he took me out of the room while my uncles checked how badly my brother was injured outside the room. My father asked me what had caused me to act in such a manner. It took me a considerable amount of time to be able to form words, but eventually, I informed him that I had just witnessed my brother attempting to abuse my girlfriend. I was initially overwhelmed by the situation and remained in a state of shock for approximately 10 minutes. My uncle then called him, prompting him to stand up and walk over to the phone. He remained silent for another 10 minutes before finally speaking. He informed us that he was going to take my brother to the hospital. I then went to look for my girlfriend, who was conversing with my sister about the recent events. I said goodbye to my sister and we proceeded to leave. On our way to our house, my girlfriend was inconsolable, exhibiting signs of confusion, anger, and distress. By the time we arrived home, she was inconsolable and continued to cry until she fell asleep. She was asleep for a couple of days, and this was her routine. Gradually, she was able to talk again. During this period, my family kept me informed of my condition. I had broken my brother's nose and dislocated his jaw. My mother was in denial about the incident. She was incredulous that her son was capable of such an act. However, I did not think much about it because I understood that each person reacts differently to such events. Furthermore, I understood why my mother was trying to explain my brother's actions. The last thing I heard from him was that he was asleep. Following his discharge from the hospital, he was ostracized by his colleagues and local community. He was dismissed from his job and relocated. I ceased all external communication and concentrated on supporting my partner. She was coping with the situation as best she could, despite being extremely distressed and lacking energy. After almost a month at home, she had to return to work. However, she returned after a few hours, stating that I was unable to cease my feelings of threat, which I attributed to the possibility that she was in danger and that someone might attempt to harm her at any moment. I proposed that the most prudent course of action would be to seek professional assistance. Initially, she was reluctant to accept this suggestion, but after further reflection, she came to recognize its merits. After the commencement of therapy, she began to demonstrate signs of improvement. Following nearly 2 months of therapy, her therapist recommended that I consider taking some sessions. I sought to gain a comprehensive understanding of her therapist's situation and provide her with the requisite assistance. Additionally, she informed her therapist that, in the aftermath of the incident, I had virtually ceased all contact with individuals other than her and that I had never truly discussed my feelings. This information initially appeared peculiar, yet I refrained from questioning the recommendation of her therapist, despite her assertion that I was only undergoing brief therapy. I believed that I would be able to release some of the pent-up emotions I had accumulated. I recall that in the initial session, the situation escalated. I felt a profound sense of anger, not only towards my brother, but also towards myself. I was repressing my emotions because I was still blaming myself for not having noticed my brother's behavior. Moreover, I felt a profound sense of powerlessness because I was unable to protect her, as I had always promised I would. He was afraid that something similar could happen to him again. After several sessions, however, things finally started looking up. We both improved our mental state, and we even decided to take self-defense classes. I had been attending defense classes and a few weeks ago proposed to her. When I informed my family of the engagement, they congratulated me. However, my mother remained somewhat reserved and only expressed her approval when no one else was present. When we were alone, she informed me that she was pleased for me and for herself, but that she had something important to tell me. She then revealed that she had been in contact with my brother since the onset of the pandemic. She explained that my brother had sought her out. My mother inquired about my father and I, inquiring as to whether we were well and if he could assist us in any way. She expressed remorse for her actions and proceeded to relay information about my father until she made a statement that nearly provoked an emotional outburst from me. She suggested that it might be time for me to forgive my brother. I excused myself from the room and took my keys, leaving the house. Upon my return, I informed my fiancée of what my mother had told me. She was as upset as I was by my mother's words. I was taken aback by her assertion that she had already spoken to my brother about my engagement. She inquired as to whether we had discussed the possibility of a reunion. I attempted to ignore these developments until 4 days ago, when my mother called to inform me that she had informed my brother about my engagement and that he was coming to town the following week to discuss the matter further. I engaged in a heated argument with my mother. My mother had no right to inform my brother of my engagement. I had not spoken to her since the incident in question. Some relatives have suggested that I should consider giving my brother a second chance. I reached my limit yesterday afternoon when my father called me to tell me that I had to be a good brother and at least try to reconcile with him. My father even asked me to forgive my brother for what he did. This was a surprising turn of events. It is my considered opinion that a period of 4 years is sufficient for the healing process to commence and for the past to be forgiven. I am at a loss as to how my family can think in such a way. I am currently experiencing a great deal of distress as a result of my relationship with my family. I am of the opinion that I do not wish to have any further contact with my brother. I have written this account in order to express my feelings and to vent my frustration. My therapist appointment was postponed and I felt the need to write this account in order to process my feelings. I am aware that this is not the most professional way of dealing with the situation, but I felt that I needed to express my feelings. I would like to express my gratitude to the individual who provided a noteworthy comment that succinctly encapsulates the essence of this situation. It is evident that your mother is attempting to shield you from the reality of your fiancé's actions, which may be perceived as predatory or sexually abusive. Her attitude towards your partner may be influenced by biases, leading her to form negative perceptions about him. If someone were to attempt to engage with your sister in a similar manner, it is likely that your mother would not respond with immediate forgiveness and acceptance. It is crucial to recognize that your family is prepared to sacrifice your relationship and your partner's well-being to maintain the status quo. This is a clear indication that they are not genuinely concerned about your well-being or the stability of your relationship. The relationship has been sacrificed for the sake of appearances. The woman in question is aware of the situation and has expressed a desire for reconciliation. This is a direct threat to the stability of the relationship. The male partner is now aware that his family does not support him or his fiancée. The incident that occurred in their own home is now a distant memory. They are expected to act as though nothing happened. This includes smiling, attending social events, and engaging in normal family interactions. Your brother, who sexually assaulted her on 2 occasions, has been entirely acquiescent in the face of this situation. It is evident that your mother has not believed your fiancé from the outset. She has been inclined to believe that the incident was a misunderstanding and that, under the influence of alcohol, you may have perceived events differently. It is possible that you believed that they were in a room alone and that your fiancé's actions were inappropriate. However, your reaction was disproportionate given that they were drinking and that things escalated. Alternatively, there may have been other extenuating circumstances. Your mother's perspective on the matter is clear. I am appalled by this turn of events as a woman, as a mother of boys, and as a member of society. The decision has been made, and it was not yours to which they were drawn. If he returns, she may never feel safe to even leave your front porch on a daily basis. My family has urged me to forgive my brother after he attempted to AR0P my fiancée. I had not anticipated providing an update so soon. I was driven to express my emotions in this forum because I felt compelled to do so. I am grateful to all of you for your kind and supportive responses. I would like to extend my gratitude to those who have sent their blessings and good wishes to my fiancé. In response to the questions that some of you have posed, would like to clarify that I have not forgiven my brother. I would like to reiterate that I have no intention of forgiving him. I no longer have a brother, he died 4 years ago. Secondly, not every member of my family is thinking of forgiving my brother in any way. It is the minority of my family that thinks this way. I could easily go and see with all of those except for my parents. I should also clarify that my sister is on my side. She is the best friend of my fiancé and the only one besides me that knows how much she suffered the first month after the incident. Some of you have inquired about the details of my conversation with my parents. I informed them that if I had known that my brother was in town, would have never spoken to them again. I have been unable to ascertain the circumstances surrounding my brother's recent actions. My mother informed me that he contacted her at the beginning of the pandemic. He relocated to another part of our country, changed his name, and began therapy in order to reform. I have not heard much more and neither my sister has asked. My parents were not informed of his whereabouts, and thus, that is the extent of our knowledge. Additionally, someone inquired about why my brother was not incarcerated. I responded to that individual privately. I also wish to inform this audience of the primary reason for my actions. I had physically assaulted my brother to the extent that he required hospitalization. When I consulted with a lawyer, a friend of mine informed me that if I pressed charges against my brother, he could also drag me with him. I was aware that I would be incarcerated for an extended period, and she also informed me that my then-girlfriend was required to provide testimony, and she was not in the optimal emotional state to do so. Moreover, my primary concern at the time was her well-being. I could not assist her if I were incarcerated, and the most effective solution at the time was a restriction order for her. One of the reasons I had not posted an update sooner was because we both received a restriction order for my brother. I had not informed my parents about this, so if my brother showed up at any time, they would have been forced to. Additionally, some of you have suggested that the manner in which my mother responds to these situations is influenced by the fact that my girlfriend is not from our community. However, I can assure you that this is not the sole reason. Regarding the question of why I responded to my family, I had already prepared a statement to address their concerns about forgiving my brother and for my parents to give them. An ultimatum was about to be issued, requiring a choice between their son, a man who had attempted to rape his brother's fiancée, or me and their daughter. However, I had an epiphany while reading the comments on my previous post, prompting me to consider a grim possibility. The comments were largely about how my brother was confident enough to attempt to rape my fiancée in a house full of people, and that for the reaction of my parents, these and the days that followed, I considered the possibility that my brother had previously engaged in such conduct, and even worse, that my parents had covered it up. This revelation caused me to question my assumptions and rethink my relationship with my parents. I had not previously considered this possibility, and it was evident that I was dwelling on it excessively. My fiancée inquired about my thoughts, and I decided to share them with her. I asked her if she wanted me to delete the post, but after reading the initial comments and the subsequent responses, I decided to leave it up. Those who informed me that she understood my actions and conveyed their support for her. I am grateful for their words of encouragement. When I informed her of the possibility that my brother had engaged in similar conduct in the past, she expressed concern. We then informed my sister, and we proceeded to inquire with other family members, friends, and members of the community about their observations. Prior to the incident, no member of my family could recall if my brother had exhibited such behavior towards them. However, friends were more forthcoming, with some recalling that my brother was particularly kind towards the girlfriends of other family members. On occasion, he may have been overly affectionate, but this did not extend to any physical contact. It was only after my sister reached out to a sister of an ex-girlfriend that she learned of my brother's unusual behavior towards her family. The girlfriend of my brother indicated that my brother exhibited peculiar behavior around her family. She noted that since my brother was dating her sister, he became unusually reserved around him. Additionally, she mentioned that my brother displayed a flirtatious demeanor towards her. We also contacted a colleague of my brother informed us that, following a company party, my brother had accompanied another colleague home. However, she could not recall much of the evening's events, including the state of her friend at the time. This incident has led me to reconsider my perception of my brother. I now believe that he is a threat to those around him. Yesterday, all those involved in the situation met to discuss the evidence against him. When the time is right, we will present our findings. I have been engaged in a social media campaign to inform the entire community of our actions. I have also been in communication with various individuals, including my parents, about the matter. I intend to inform them of the situation in the morning, along with an ultimatum. I will also inform them that if any evidence of knowledge of the situation emerges, it will be shared with them. The actions of my brother will result in consequences. I will not be able to provide updates on this matter for the foreseeable future, or at least not any significant updates. This is not how I envisioned the weeks following my proposal, but this is a situation that we can allow to be overlooked by my fiancée. My brother has been a source of support and guidance throughout this process. I have striven to be a source of strength and stability for my sister-in-law, and I empathize with her current emotional state. I am proud of her resilience and courage in facing her trauma, which has enabled her to provide support to others. I would like to express my gratitude to everyone who has shown their support. The original post contained an error, which I have since corrected. The line that says, "A man who tried to R0P his brother, fiancé, or me and their daughter," was a mistake. He meant their daughter. He corrected this mistake in a comment update. My family wants me to forgive my brother after he tried to 0P my fiancé. Once more, I am aware that a considerable period of time has elapsed since my last update. However, I wish to provide a comprehensive update once the issue has been resolved. Furthermore, I would like to express my gratitude to all those who sent their well wishes to me, my fiancé, and any other potential victims of my brother's actions. Now, I will proceed to address the main topic. What transpired during the aftermath is still unclear. I am pleased to inform everyone that my brother is facing justice for his actions. When I last updated my fiancé, some friends and I began to examine my brother's history in search of evidence of abuse or attempted abuse of other women. Once the evidence was ready, we proceeded to bring my brother to account for his actions. The cases involved 8 women, including my fiancé, who had been subjected to some form of molestation at the hands of my brother. These included ex-girlfriends, ex-co-workers, and 2 actual co-workers. Furthermore, I informed the workers that once we had completed our preparations, I would present my parents with evidence of their actions and also that we would disseminate the information through social media. However, neither of these events occurred as planned, primarily due to the counsel of my legal representative. He advised that if I presented my parents with the information, there was a possibility that they would attempt to defend my brother's actions. I initially did not consider this possibility, as I wanted to try to persuade my parents to reconsider their stance. However, at that point, I could no longer trust them. It was conceivable that they had previously concealed my brother's actions and that disseminating the information via social media would be advantageous for my brother, who could then allege defamation. This would unnecessarily complicate matters and delay the confrontation with my parents. It is also pertinent to mention that during that period, I went completely silent with them because I was unwilling to risk further complications and because I could no longer trust them. My sister, on the other hand, assumed a neutral stance while in reality she was assisting me and my during this period. My sister learned more about the circumstances surrounding my brother's absence. She discovered that, following the incident at the party, my brother relocated to another part of the country, where he had a friend. At that time, my family exhibited a lack of understanding and compassion, which ultimately led to my brother's isolation. He eventually shared the details of his family's rejection, which stemmed from their discovery of his infidelity. Furthermore, my sister learned that my fiancé had been involved in an affair with my brother's girlfriend. This information was revealed despite the absence of a police report, which was surprising given the circumstances. The incident resulted in my brother being sent to the hospital, which prevented us from pursuing legal action without my brother's involvement. This ultimately led to my brother securing employment and rebuilding his life. My brother initially contacted my parents at the end of 2021, which coincided with the most challenging period of the pandemic in my country. Subsequently, he and my mother have maintained regular contact. My father and mother even visited him on several occasions. Finally, the most unfortunate development occurred. During those years, my brother had a daughter. The child was the result of a one-night stand. He had impregnated a woman in April of 2021. They agreed to co-parent. The couple did not wish to marry, and in December of that same year, they had my niece. My brother introduced them to my parents and sister 2 weeks before all the evidence was ready. When she gave me the notice, it was like a bowl of cold water splashing against my face. I was initially incredulous about what my sister told me, but she showed me pictures of them. At that instant, my world trembled again because not only my family has to face the truth, but also his family. However, I then realized that the child was another reason to continue seeking justice because it was imperative that we avoid any contact between the mother and my brother. My fiancé and I were a source of support for each other. The situation was undoubtedly challenging for me, but I cannot begin to imagine what it must have been like for her. I have gained a deep understanding of how to overcome a traumatic experience like what she endured and to use it to help others. The least I can do for her is to be there for her every step of the way through this process. Finally, the day arrived when my brother was at my parents' house when the police showed up. However, according to my sister, it was not as it seemed. Following the intervention of the police, my brother was compelled to flee, and was ultimately apprehended. He attempted to resist arrest, resulting in the use of a stun gun and the addition of a charge of aggression against a police officer. After a period of 2 days in lockdown, my brother was sentenced to prison during the course of his trial. The trial itself was a lengthy and complex process, both within and outside of the courtroom. During the proceedings, 2 of the women who had been assaulted by my brother became visibly distressed while testifying. My fiancée, however, was able to maintain a composed demeanor during her testimony. Once we were alone, she began to sob, and I was able to calm her. However, when my parents and sister arrived to testify, I broke down. This was the moment when the perpetrator was finally facing justice. However, he had already caused significant harm. I fear that many of the victims will not be able to recover fully. One must learn to live with the consequences of trauma. The week of the verdict was the most difficult of my life. After numerous attempts, my brother was finally found guilty of 8 charges. He will spend the rest of his life in prison. He attempted to implicate me in the case due to excessive self-defense. The defense force presented a series of arguments based on the testimony of the accused lawyer. However, the judge ultimately dismissed the accusation. With regard to my niece, the mother initially exhibited a state of denial. However, after being presented with evidence, she demonstrated a willingness to assist in the proceedings. With respect to my parents and those who supported my brother, it will undoubtedly be challenging to cope with the loss of their presence in our lives. This is particularly true for my parents, with whom I have lost trust. While I am aware that I am losing my future appears promising, particularly in light of the women I am currently involved with. I feel a sense of liberation, not only for myself and my fiancée but also for the other women who have been harmed by my brother. I am immensely grateful and admire the courage of all the women who have shared their experiences in the comments of my previous posts. I extend my gratitude to all the women and men who have been victims of similar situations. To those who have suffered at the hands of such a heinous crime, I extend my sincerest wishes for a peaceful life. To those who have been too afraid to speak, I assure you that you are not alone. This situation has taught me that there are more good people than bad, and that there will always be someone willing to extend a helping hand. I hope that my fiancée's story can reach the right ears and help those who need it. I believe that a stage of our lives is ended, but at the end, I feel like it is a new beginning for those who deserve it. Now that the excuse of a human being brother is finally sent to jail, this story is concluded. Honestly, what with a family thinking about trying to forgive someone for doing an act that could give somebody PTSD, I hope that he cuts his losses and has a beautiful journey with his fiancée.